Friends, it's me, Meerab, and today we are diving into one of the most shocking, heartbreaking, and utterly unfiltered moments in reality television history. The kind of moment that makes you question everything you thought you knew about the people you watch on screen. Christine Brown and Janelle Brown, the women who spent decades navigating the delicate, often chaotic waters of plural marriage, have finally broken free of the constraints, expectations, and pressures that kept them silent for so long. And the man at the center of it all, Cody Brown. For years, he projected an image of control, authority, and devotion, the patriarch holding together a complex family structure. But for the first time, that image is completely shattered, and it happened right in front of the cameras. Picture the scene. The studio lights are blindingly bright. The cameras worry silently, as if they themselves know they are about to capture history. Christine and Janelle sit side by side, shoulders slightly brushing. A subtle signal of unity that Cody has never been able to break. There's a quiet tension in the air, the kind that precedes monumental truth-telling. For decades, they have been careful not to upset the balance. Careful not to rock the boat. Careful not to say anything that might unleash Cody's rage or leave Robin in tears. But all that caution, all that restraint is gone. Tonight, there is only truth. Raw, unvarnished, unyielding truth. Christine begins, and the weight of her presence immediately fills the room. She looks directly into the camera, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with something far more devastating: indifference. She begins to speak of the man Cody used to be, the courage he once had. It's the admiration he once inspired, the warmth he once radiated. She recalls the husband she married, the father she respected, the leader she believed in. And then she pauses, takes a deep breath, and lets the truth fall like a hammer. That man is gone. The man she married no longer exists. In his place is someone she no longer loves, no longer respects, no longer desires. And in that moment, every person in that studio, every viewer watching from home feels the seismic shift. This isn't a temporary argument. This isn't a fleeting emotion. This is a woman stepping out from under the shadow of a man she once worshipped and saying, clearly and unapologetically, that he is irrelevant to her happiness. Christine's words hit Cody like a lightning strike. She doesn't yell, she doesn't scream. There's no dramatics, no theatrics. There's only the cold, calm delivery of truth. She doesn't need to fight him or prove a point. Her mere existence in her own truth is enough to undo him. And she isn't done. She goes further, revealing that she is no longer attracted to him physically, emotionally, in any way that matters. Again, not with anger or malice, but with a devastating final indifference. The man who thought he could control, manipulate, and define her feelings now watches as the reality of his obsolescence sinks in. And then Janelle speaks. If Christine's words were a storm, Janelle's are a scalpel precise, cold, and cutting deep. She states plainly that she hasn't seen Cody in 10 months. Let that sink in. 10 months. They are legally married, spiritually tied, but in practical, emotional, and daily terms, Cody has vanished from her life. And the most damning part? She doesn't miss him. She doesn't ache. She doesn't wish for his presence. Instead, she recalls the day he stormed out after their explosive fight in December. And her first reaction was relief, a weight lifted from her shoulders. Freedom replacing the tension that had haunted her for decades. The man she spent over 20 years with, the one who was supposed to be the pillar of her life, had exited the scene, and she was happier for it. And the humiliation for Cody doesn't end there. Because Christine and Janelle haven't just left him, they've replaced him with each other. Their bond, forged in shared history, pain, and survival, is now stronger than any tie Cody can offer. On live television, they openly discuss planning trips together, co-parenting their children, and building a future entirely independent of him. Christine even goes so far as to reveal that if she remarries, her next partner will have to accept Janelle as part of the package, an unthinkable requirement for a man who couldn't even keep one wife happy. Their chemistry is undeniable. The laughter and mutual understanding between them radiating like a force field Cody can never penetrate. They have reclaimed the term sister wives, redefining it on their own terms. female solidarity, respect, and friendship. Something Cody's version of plural marriage never offered. And while Christine and Janelle thrive, Cody is left in Flagstaff with Robin, watching his carefully constructed legacy crumble before the entire world. His control over the narrative is gone. His authority, his power, his influence, Odada. And the most painful part, he isn't just being left behind. He's being replaced by the very women who were supposed to orbit his life. They don't need him. They never did. And now, the world knows it. The cameras continue to roll, capturing every micro-expression, every subtle gesture that Cody could no longer control or spin. Christine shifted slightly in her chair, her fingers tracing the edge of the table, as if grounding herself in the moment. But there was no hesitation in her voice as she spoke next, delving deeper into a truth that had been buried for far too long. She spoke about the countless moments of frustration, the nights filled with silence that was more suffocating than any argument. She remembered sitting in their home, watching Cody drift through life like a ghost of the man she once loved, the man she had admired for his courage, his drive, and his ability to make her feel safe and seen. That man had vanished, replaced by someone unrecognizable, someone whose priorities no longer aligned with hers, whose heart seemed unreachable. Christine's gaze softened briefly, and for a moment, the audience could almost glimpse the woman she used to be, hopeful, trusting, fiercely loyal. Then, with an almost imperceptible inhale, she delivered the final blow. She no longer felt love for Cody, not for the man he had become. The way she said it carried a quiet, devastating finality. There was no fury, no theatrical drama, just the unassailable truth of her own emotions. In that moment, every viewer, every studio attendee, and surely Cody himself, understood that she had fully stepped out of his orbit. Her emotional freedom, long denied, was now on full display. Janelle's turn came, and unlike Christine, her delivery was cold, methodical, almost surgical in its precision. She didn't linger on emotion or dramatize the past. She presented facts with the quiet confidence of someone who had long since made peace with the upheaval. 10 months. That was the span of time she hadn't seen Cody. 10 months of silence, of living her life without the weight of his presence. She described the day he left after their explosive December fight, recounting the moment with startling clarity. And yet, rather than sadness or regret, she admitted a surprising truth. Her first reaction was relief. Freedom, liberation. The tension that had suffocated her for decades had been lifted in a single, decisive moment. And then came the most humiliating revelation for Cody, Christine, and Janelle. Weren't just moving on, they were moving on together. Their bond formed through shared experiences. Trials and unspoken understanding had solidified into something unbreakable. On camera, they laughed together, finishing each other's sentences, supporting each other in ways Cody could no longer access. They planned road trips, shared parenting responsibilities, and even discussed future possibilities as if Cody had never existed. Christine went so far as to say that any future relationship she entered would require the presence and acceptance of Janelle, a rule Cody could never have imagined. Their chemistry was undeniable, their happiness contagious. And it existed entirely independent of the man who once claimed dominion over their lives. As they spoke, Christine reflected on her journey, tracing the arc of her own emotional evolution. She remembered the earliest days of plural marriage, the hope and excitement of building a family together. The belief that with patience and dedication, any obstacle could be overcome. But over the years, that vision had deteriorated. Arguments had replaced affection, frustration had replaced admiration. And Cody's image as a strong, courageous partner had eroded into one of control and expectation. She remembered the countless moments of compromise, the silent adjustments, the inner negotiations to maintain harmony, even when her own happiness was compromised. And through it all, she had held on to a glimmer of faith, hoping that love and commitment could triumph over growing disillusionment. But the truth, stark and undeniable, was now on display for the world to see. Cody was no longer the man she could love, respect, or admire. And the finality of that truth was reinforced by Janelle's own revelations. Janelle, who had endured her own long journey of disappointment, frustration, and detachment, had already reclaimed her life in ways Cody could never have predicted. She had found joy in independence, peace in distance, and strength in her bond with Christine, a bond that Cody could not influence, control, or disrupt. The most shocking moment of all, perhaps, was the mutual acknowledgement that their children were now at the center of a new family dynamic, one that functioned perfectly without Cody's involvement. Christine spoke about co-parenting in a way that reflected not just responsibility, but genuine joy. She described moments of connection, laughter, and shared growth with their children, moments that were untainted by tension or the shadow of an absent father. The audience could feel the warmth and authenticity radiating from them. Stark contrast to the calculated, performative relationships Cody had long tried to maintain. Christine and Janelle's public confession was more than just personal revelation. 'Twas a statement of female solidarity and empowerment. By reclaiming the term sister wives, they had transformed it from a label dictated by a patriarchal structure into a symbol of choice, respect, and mutual support. Their bond was no longer defined by Cody's expectations or societal norms. It was defined by trust, shared history, and a commitment to each other's well-being. And as they laughed, shared stories, and planned their future together, the underlying message was clear. They didn't need Cody. They never really had. And now the world knew it too. Meanwhile, Cody, confined to Flagstaff with Robin, watched helplessly as the narrative he once controlled crumbled before his eyes. His authority, his carefully constructed image, his place at the center of the family, all of it was dissolving in real time. The man who had once held dominion over multiple lives now found himself irrelevant, replaced by the very women he believed he could command. And the most devastating part? Christine and Janelle weren't just surviving without him, they were thriving. Their laughter, their joy, their freedom, and their love for each other became a living testament to the failure of his vision. A public rebuke that could not be ignored, spun, or denied. In the weeks following the broadcast, fans and viewers alike were left in awe. Social media erupted with commentary, analysis, and praise for Christine and Janelle's courage. They had spoken truths that many suspected but few dared to verbalize. They had laid bare the emotional and psychological realities of plural marriage, exposing the flaws, imbalances, and failures inherent in a system designed to place one man at the center of multiple lives. And through it all, they had maintained dignity, clarity, and an unwavering commitment to their own happiness, a stark contrast to Cody's crumbling persona. The depth of their revelations extended beyond personal grievances. They spoke openly about the emotional toll of navigating relationships where loyalty and love were dictated by hierarchical structures rather than mutual respect. They detailed the daily compromises, the quiet resentments, the unspoken frustrations that compounded over years. Christine recalled moments when she felt invisible, when her opinions, desires, and needs were secondary to Cody's vision. Janelle reflected on the suffocating pressure to maintain appearances. It's the exhausting effort to keep the family together at the expense of her own well-being. Together, their narratives painted a picture of a system that privileged control over connection, image over intimacy, and hierarchy over genuine partnership. Yet, despite the pain, there was triumph. Christine and Janelle had not only survived, but had rebuilt themselves and their lives with intentionality, love, and authenticity. Their co-parenting strategies, road trips, shared adventures, and daily joys became a blueprint for reclaiming life after emotional estrangement. Each moment, each laugh, each shared glance on camera was a declaration. Cody is no longer central to our lives, and we are stronger, happier, and more fulfilled because of it. Janelle didn't hesitate for a second. The moment Christine began speaking, Janelle jumped in, her voice calm but firm, echoing Christine's sentiments perfectly. Cody isn't the same man anymore. She admitted plainly that she barely recognizes him these days, that the person they married has disappeared and been replaced by someone unrecognizable, someone they can't respect, can't admire, and certainly can't be married to. Two women who dedicated decades of their lives to this man, who raised children with him, who built their homes and futures around his plural marriage vision, were now declaring to the world that the man they once loved simply no longer exists. Christine's voice cracked slightly as she tried to articulate the realization that had haunted her for months. Perhaps this was why the marriage stopped working for her, she admitted. Maybe it wasn't a sudden failure or a single argument, but a slow erosion, the gradual disappearance of the man she had loved. She reflected on the courageous, admirable husband she had once adored, and the stark contrast to the distant, disconnected figure who now occupied his place. And the cruelest part for Cody? Christine said all of this on national television, without hesitation, without faltering, without holding back a single word. If Christine's words were a roaring fire, Janelle's were ice. She didn't cry. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't lash out in anger or bitterness. She simply spoke the facts, and those facts were devastating. She calmly stated that Cody hadn't set foot in her house in 10 months. 10 months without holidays, birthdays, or meaningful time with their children. 10 months of absence that didn't hurt her in the slightest. In fact, Janelle admitted she felt relieved. She told Christine that she didn't even feel like she was married anymore. They hadn't had the official conversation, but the truth was undeniable. Their relationship was effectively over. Then came the moment that would have cut deepest of all. Christine asked Janelle directly if she missed Cody. The response was immediate, clear, and absolute. No. She didn't miss Cody. She didn't even miss Robin. The only people she cared about, the only family that mattered to her anymore, were Christine and their children. The man who had supposedly been the foundation of the entire family was irrelevant to her happiness. And his absence registered not as loss, but as freedom. The way Janelle described the day of their massive fight in December was even more damning. Cody had completely lost it, screaming accusations, pointing fingers, unloading years of pent-up resentment in one explosive confrontation. He accused her of gaslighting him, making decisions without consulting him, of failing to support him, of disrupting his carefully maintained family structure. But instead of collapsing or pleading for reconciliation, Janelle simply let him leave. She didn't chase after him. She didn't beg him to stay. She didn't even attempt to repair the dynamic he thought he controlled. Instead, she drove around town afterward and for the first time in years felt lighter, free. Relief washed over her like a tidal wave, and the weight she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying lifted instantly. The humiliation for Cody couldn't have been greater. He stormed out, thinking he was asserting dominance, showing who was in charge, expecting fear or remorse. But Janelle didn't crumble. She didn't beg. She didn't falter. She thrived in his absence, and she admitted that on camera, articulating the truth with the calmness of someone who had long since outgrown the man she was married to. She still carried some affection for Cody. She confessed, but she had evolved, grown, and needed something far beyond what he was capable of offering. When Christine asked if Cody's change might make her want a full marriage with him again, Janelle said yes, but immediately added that it was unrealistic. She didn't believe he could change. She saw him clearly now, and the man she had married had long ceased to exist. The on-screen devastation didn't stop there. They tackled Cody's accusations directly, those claims that he had wielded as weapons over the years. He had accused Janelle of being a bad sister wife, expecting shame, guilt, and perhaps an apology. Instead, both women dismantled that narrative in real time. Janelle brought up Cody's accusation first, her voice even but edged with frustration, stating that he had claimed she wasn't a good sister wife. Christine immediately cut in, pointing out that Cody's criticisms had always been about one person, Robin. The accusation had nothing to do with Janelle's relationship with Christine or Mary. It was entirely about Janelle refusing to submit to Robin's constant need for attention and the victim narrative she had cultivated. Christine doubled down, stating plainly, "That's reality. Not speculation, not rumor, just the cold, hard truth that everyone in the family knew but nobody could say out loud until now." On live television, they named the elephant in the room. Cody's definition of a good sister wife was someone who prioritized Robin above everything else. And both Christine and Janelle had refused to play that game. Janelle openly admitted she was not close to Robin, never had been. And the idea that Robin was some sort of perpetual victim was something she refused to accept. Christine supported her, emphasizing that the accusation of being a bad sister wife was absurd. In reality, Christine and Janelle were excellent sister wives to each other. They supported one another, co-parented their children together, and planned futures that didn't rely on Cody's approval or involvement. They even joked about it, laughter threading through the tension, highlighting a bond Cody could never break. Christine agreed, saying they would always be sister wives forever. A connection unshakable, regardless of Cody's attempts at control. The truth about Cody and Robin's so-called plural marriage was now out in the open. Viewers had long noticed the reality. Cody was effectively living monogamously with Robin, only visiting the others occasionally and calling it celestial. Christine said it directly. Cody and Robin were living monogamy. Plain and simple. Janelle added that Mary wasn't part of the equation either. It wasn't that Cody was failing at plural marriage. He had actively chosen to focus on one wife while everyone else received scraps, or in Mary's case, nothing at all. The hypocrisy was undeniable. They highlighted how Robin had tried to wield old church doctrines to delegitimize Christine's departure. But none of them had attended that church in years. Christine saw through the desperate attempt to cling to spiritual authority, exposing the absurdity of Robin's position. Janelle confirmed that spiritual marriages, while theoretically eternal and binding, were meaningless when Cody only honored one wife. The emotional and spiritual imbalance was clear, and the truth couldn't be denied. Finally, Janelle recounted the breaking point in December, a fight so intense it shattered any lingering illusions. Cody had erupted, screaming, pointing, unloading years of resentment. And the result was unexpected. Janelle did not collapse. She did not apologize. She did not chase after him. She felt relief, freedom, a clarity that the marriage in its current form was over. And in that simple acknowledgement, the full weight of their independence and empowerment became impossible to ignore. Janelle didn't fight back. She didn't try to explain herself. She didn't attempt to justify her choices. And she didn't even pause to plead for understanding. She simply told Cody she was done listening. When he continued yelling, pushing, trying to assert his control, she calmly said the words that marked the end. "We're done. Goodbye." And then she let him walk out. Cody probably thought he was making some grand statement, asserting his authority as the head of the family, reminding her who was in charge, showing her that he wouldn't tolerate her defiance. But instead of the reaction he expected, shame, fear. Pleading, Janelle got into her car and drove around town, feeling lighter than she had in years. She described the sensation as a weight lifting off her shoulders, a liberation she hadn't felt in decades. The man she had spent over 20 years with. The man who had built his identity around being the center of their plural family, had just screamed at her, accused her of all sorts of wrongdoing, and walked away. And her first feeling, pure relief. Not sadness, not anxiety about the future, not worry over how to fix a broken marriage, just relief. Christine was stunned when she heard this, asking if Janelle had been heartbroken. She had cried, if she had felt devastated by the fight. And Janelle's answer was simple, no. She had been momentarily stunned, yes, but heartbroken. Not even close. The only time she recalled crying over her marriage ending was when Christine left. Because she feared losing her sister-wife bond and the closeness of their children. Cody, he hadn't even warranted that level of emotion. That realization must have been crushing for him. The exit he had likely imagined as a grand demonstration of power and control had spectacularly backfired. She wasn't pleading. She wasn't broken. She was free. And while Cody was probably sulking at home, watching his carefully constructed empire begin to crumble. Christine and Janelle were out living their lives fully, freely, unapologetically. They documented every moment on national television. Road trips, adventures, laughter, quality time with their children. Everything Cody had promised through his vision of plural marriage, but never delivered. Christine invited Janelle to Idaho to visit her brother's family. And what could have been a routine trip turned into an emblem of liberation. They went on all-terrain vehicles, something Janelle had never experienced before in her life. Christine described watching her friend and sister-wife take the wheel with confidence, leaving everyone else in the dust, reveling in the freedom and excitement of the moment. Christine's pride was palpable. She celebrated Janelle's ability to seize control of her own happiness, to have fun unapologetically, to embrace life on her own terms. Janelle admitted it was exhilarating. For the first time in decades, she was doing something purely for herself. A rare joy after years of putting everyone else's needs first. But these adventures were just the beginning. Christine and Janelle planned road trips together, discussing future holidays without the constraints of Flagstaff or the constant stress of family drama. They were charting a life free from Cody's oversight, making choices entirely on their own terms. Christine even helped Janelle move to North Carolina, driving a massive moving truck across the country to support her in starting a new chapter. Janelle purchased over 150 acres with her daughter Maddie and son-in-law Caleb. They were building homes, planting flower farms, creating a meaningful life they could call entirely their own. Christine was right there every step of the way, joking, laughing, celebrating, and supporting. It was a beautiful display of solidarity, of empowerment, of sisterhood unbound by the old dynamics of a failed plural marriage. Meanwhile, Cody sat at home watching all of this unfold on television. Every adventure, every moment of joy. Every step forward that Christine and Janelle took without him was a reminder that the control he believed he wielded was gone. And perhaps the most humiliating blow came when Robin tried to use religion to challenge them. She apparently thought she had the perfect defense when Christine left, claiming that Christine couldn't just walk away from a spiritual marriage without approval from church leadership. It was a desperate, grasping attempt to delegitimize Christine's choice, to make it seem like her departure didn't count. But Christine and Janelle exposed the absurdity of that argument immediately. Janelle reminded viewers that in their old church, spiritual divorce required ecclesiastical approval, counseling sessions, and official procedures meant to lock members into eternal commitments. Yet none of the adults, including Christine, Janelle, or Cody, attended that church anymore. Christine pointed out the obvious. She didn't subscribe to those rules, didn't believe in that authority, and didn't need anyone's permission to reclaim her life. Robin's desperate attempt to invoke church doctrine revealed only her own fear. If Christine could walk away without consequences, what did that mean for Robin's own supposedly eternal spiritual marriage? The rules meant nothing if they weren't followed or respected, and the facade of authority crumbled in front of millions. Then came the ultimate humiliation and the moment that truly rewrote the narrative of this family. Christine and Janelle reclaimed the term sister wives, a phrase that Cody had built his entire identity around. For years, it represented his vision, his control, and his legacy. But on live television, Christine and Janelle took it back. They declared with certainty and joy that they would always be sister wives. Cody's opinion, his approval, his existence in the equation was irrelevant. Christine even joked that whoever she remarried would have to accept Janelle as a permanent part of her life, no negotiable. Janelle echoed her, cementing their bond, affirming that nothing could ever come between them. They weren't sister wives because of Cody anymore. They were sister wives because they chose to be. Because their connection transcended any romantic relationship, any past loyalty, any failed marriage. They had built something stronger, healthier, and more enduring than anything Cody could have provided. Where he had failed, they had succeeded. Their bond represented mutual respect, unwavering support, genuine friendship, and the ability to thrive together. Christine reflected on the evolution of the term noting that when the show first aired, sister wives felt like something private, something sacred that perhaps shouldn't be shared widely. Now she embraced it fully, proud to see so many women adopting the term to signify chosen family. Collaboration and empowerment. That's what she and Janelle had created, sisterhood unshackled from the failures of Cody's vision. A bond forged in shared experiences, mutual care, and unwavering loyalty. They were stronger together than they had ever been as part of his family. And they had made it clear, Cody was irrelevant to their happiness. For decades, Cody had built his public persona around being the patriarch of a plural family, starring in television shows, writing books, promoting himself as an expert in polygamy. And now, the very two women who had embodied the true essence of sisterhood had taken that concept and made it their own without him. Their lives were richer, fuller, and freer because they had chosen each other over him. They had reclaimed the narrative, the power, and the joy that he could never give them. In the end, the message was unmistakable. Christine and Janelle were thriving, unapologetically, independently, and in ways Cody could never have imagined. Their lives, their happiness, and their bond were no longer tied to him. And as they shared their story on national television, they invited viewers to witness not the downfall of a man, but the rise of two women who had chosen themselves, each other, and a future defined by freedom, joy, and unwavering sisterhood.